Oh.
Tell me about this show and where the idea of it came from, because it sounds very unique and very unusual. Was it like, I just want to write a show that has these qualities, or was it an evolution that came out of somewhere?
Definitely an evolution. Over the last couple of years, I've been really interested in interactive theater, and especially like one-on-one interactions, just seeing like how an audience member is in those scenarios and like what kind of information can be divulged. And then on another stream, I have this like fascination with Alice in Wonderland and going through a lot of addiction during my early years in high school. I always wondered what it was like for Alice after Wonderland when she came out of it. And I thought about that a lot when I was going through like detoxing periods and stuff coming out of addiction. So those two things kind of collided about a year and a half ago with my performance partner, Mike Stewart. And we were like, okay, we need to like work these into something. So originally it was going to be like a much larger show with lots of characters. And then it kind of just dwindled down to what's essential. And essentially it just needs to be Alice and one other person. And we wanted to create it in an installation so that there's a world being created, an entire experience being created around it.
You mean like kind of like a? I mean, I haven't seen the show, but I've of course read a lot about it. Like a Punch Drunk, Sleep No More kind of audiences are free to like interact with things at their own, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
We're gonna have like drawers you can pull out, and it'll be like journal entries of Alice's, and yeah, like we're gonna have cake and tea that you can sit down and have with her. There's gonna be books that you can open and read. There's gonna be like little secret notes hidden all over the place that give like more information about where Alice has come from.
So the individual, one audience member at a time, they get to steer how the performance goes. The experience, performance, same thing. This is a larger question
Yeah,
about.
I mean, I go towards experience because it's a small part of it is me performing, but the larger aspect is someone coming in and experiencing a different world and experiencing interacting with a character.
Right. And the audience gets to steer that a little bit, so
Totally.
it's not just us watching you; it's us involved in a conversation. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Now, when you say what happens to Alice when she comes back from Wonderland, this is always like speculative, like what happens after, you know, after Dorothy comes back from Oz, or what's her life like 10 years from now. So, would you call it a sequel? And I know there's Through the Looking Glass. That's the sequel, but that's not the right word, is it?
No, it's kind of like our version of if Alice had lived this time, not back in the
Yeah,
Victoria era
yeah,
and in Vancouver,
right,
what her life would have been like dealing with her mental health afterwards and
right,
coming out of that and just trying to figure out where she is and what's going on and how she fits into this world. We're setting her at age 18. So it's about probably 4 years since she's come back from Through the Looking Glass. So it's yeah, she's getting a grip on her life, and then going into adulthood, she's trying to figure out how much of that was real and how much of it
right,
can either help or hinder her as she moves forward.
right. Are there snippets of Alice in Wonderland, like textually, that's used in the piece that you've pulled words or phrases or whatever from the book?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially like we were looking a lot at like the rhythms of how different actresses have played Alice.
Okay,
So looking at like her way of speaking that people connect to, especially like the Disney version,
right,
because that's something that is in a lot of our childhoods. So how we're trying to create as much of a comfortable environment for people to then be able to talk openly, and that comes with nostalgia as well.
now, as an actor, you have to. I mean, one of the things that actors, not all actors, I suppose, but a lot of actors have to look at the script and look at the experiences that the characters had and try to make them real for themselves. So she's had all these really strange experiences. So how do you relate to, a giant caterpillar and the walking decks of cards? Like how
Yeah.
to, or is it just imagination?
Well, I feel like I've kind of had experiences like that. I think that going through all of the experimentations I did with drugs when I was younger, there were definitely hallucinations that came along with that. I also did some work when I was at Douglas College called Rivering, that is like lucid dreaming.
Right. Yes, I've heard of this. Yeah.
And a very unique experience I had with that was within my first few months of starting to do that, I had a really vivid dream about this world, and it went straight into my river. And there was characters, places, events that were happening around me. I had a place in this world, and we would do rivering 2 or 3 times a week, and I would continually go back into this world.
Mm-hmm.
So I would continually be meeting these characters, forming relationships, continuing on. And it scared me because it's kind of like that moment of, am I going crazy? And I sat down with my teacher and I talked to him because I was just like, nobody else is having this experience in the class. I'm worried. Like, I have this history. I'm worried for my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And he reassured me. He's like, we have the tools in place. You're doing what you need to do. This is something that happens to some people, particularly when they're really connected to like dream states and that like part of their mind. So I've experienced some weird things in that world. There was like minotaurs walking around, and like it wasn't set here.
Right.
So within that, I feel like I haven't gone to Wonderland, but I've gone to my own version of it, and it feels like experiences. Like when you have those crazy vivid dreams that you wake up and you're like crying, or you have a pain in your side because you got stabbed or whatever. It feels like I got to live in that for 2 years.
Does that make this piece semi-autobiographical in some ways? Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah. It's definitely pulled from experiences that I've had. I mean,
I know that's not the right word because it's not about you per se,
but no, like it is deeply connected to me. It's not me taking a character from a script and jumping into it. There's definitely an intertwine of experiences I've had, and I think that that's a main reason why I wanted to do this, is because I'm so intrigued by this character and I feel so close to her, and I want to know what it was like for her afterwards, because I feel like I went through it.
Yeah.
And then how do I share that with other people without it being self-indulgent?
Right.
And it's like putting a character between myself and another human being, and then asking them to interact. I'm way more looking to create that experience for them, and then be able to play with it in it myself.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah. Now, for anyone who hasn't yet seen it, what is, without giving too much away, what is the actual experience like? I come to a door and I open it and there you are, or is like, and then we just have a chat? Is that how it works? Or?
It's different every time.
Okay.
So there's a 15-minute window. So you come to the door and you get thrown into the rabbit hole. And all I'll say is that there's lots of things to do in the rabbit hole.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a kind of a format of questions that we've looked at doing, but it depends on how much the person wants to interact with the environment, how much they want to interact with me, how willing they are to talk, if they want to talk more about themselves or if they want to talk more about me. I, of course, am guiding it so that I'm trying to get them to answer questions. And then as that moves forward, they can decide to go further into the rabbit hole, which then we have 2 other sections that they can move into.
It's their option.
But it's their option, yeah. So if they want to stay, we have like a series of questions that stay pretty light in the beginning. But if they want to continue going further into answering the question of who are you, they can decide to move further into Wonderland.
Wow. What have you learned about the craft of acting, I suppose, through this process? Because it's an unconventional piece. It's not just a scripted, thing. So what have you what has challenged you as an actor doing this sort of thing?
I think just knowing that character. Like, you can go on stage and know your lines and know how the character moves and talks, but a lot of the time actors, well, some do, but a lot of the time it's not necessarily, you don't know exactly every detail of their life, like what their dog's name when they were 4 or whatever. So being able to know that character so well that any question that comes to you, you can either answer or you have something that can pull you into an answer very quickly. So being able to know that character almost as intimately as you know yourself. Because sometimes I'm staying in character for 6 hours. And it's like, how do you stay there how do you keep yourself present in that character if you don't know them?
Sounds almost like counseling, knowing how to respond to a question to bring it back to a place where it's going to be the most fruitful experience, like a counselor does.
Yeah, we actually did research on how counselors
Oh, yeah,
format
okay.
their questions in order to mostly to create comforting environments so that you do feel connected and you can answer things and not feel like someone's dragging them out of you. So we looked at how counselors do that in a really basic way.
Is there anything about this performance or about the character, about this project that scares you?
Um, yeah, I guess triggering other people in their experience because like I know dark things can come up in these matters. And I mean, they have for me. I've had to deal with a lot before going into the process of the show so that I'm safe doing it. And I think that making sure I know how to handle that and we're not just triggering someone within something and then sending them back into the world. That would be my worst outcome of the show. So putting into place, like I've gone through knowing how to deal with people with panic attacks and pressure points. We have counselors lined up that we're going to have cards for them. So
Right, that was one of my
needs
next questions. Yeah.
Yeah, that if anybody needs to go and talk to someone about it, we can be like, here are resources. I'm available to talk just as like a human being to you. There's counselors that are trained that you can go and talk to, or if you need more than that, like our team is there to support audience members even after the experience if it becomes something for them.
Because you don't know what's going to come up.
No idea.
Could be anything. Could be light and laughy and have a great time.
Yeah.
And I suppose people go down rabbit holes. Pardon the reference, but
Yeah.
you know, the Revolver Festival is not seen as necessarily a festival of complete finished works. That the understanding is that this is work that can have a continued life. Do you have any hopes for this project beyond this festival?
Yeah, we're taking it to Stampede in July.
In Victoria?
Yeah.
Right.
And then beyond that, we're looking to eventually build it into a full 40-minute show that brings in like micro audiences instead of just one-on-ones.
Okay.
And I would love to be able to create a format of it that we can tour to schools. I don't know what that looks like yet, but that's just something that being able to talk about mental health, particularly to young people that don't have the vocabulary to do so yet.
Right.
I think is something I'm really passionate about.
So you think this might be a venue to help young people unpack things?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of people that just want to be heard. Everybody just wants to be listened to at some point.
Yeah.
And it amazes me. I work in a call center pretty much, and it amazes me how many people just want to tell me about their day all the time. And it makes me really sad because it means that we don't have the skills in our society, most of us, to just listen. And being able to do that, I think, is really, really vital to being able to help people. So I want to be able to do that through Alice.
Fantastic. When does it open?
June 1st to the 3rd.
1st to the 3rd.
Yeah.
One performance every 15 minutes.
Every 20 minutes.
Every 20
There's
minutes.
a 5-minute reset. Yeah, and there's only 28 seats for the 3 days.
Not sold out yet.
Like, no, but we already have, I think there's
now.
10 seats taken already. So, like,
okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
10 seats taken already.
Yeah.
That's like almost half.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks.